listen hear from you live. It's totally different when you have live conferences compared to online. Even online classes and face-to-face classes are two different worlds for me. We are trying our best to cope, but
yeah, I understand. It's everywhere. Same thing in the United States as well. We hope to go back to online while on-site teaching the fall. But let's see how the corona is coming. If there is another wave coming, then we are back to online teaching. So
we pray it will be over soon. And welcome, Dr. Awal. How are you? Dr. Awal from IBF.
Dr. Awal, I think you're muted. You need to give me screen sharing privilege, Kamala.
Yeah, sure. I'm informing the admin. Birisi ara telefon numaramı ver. Neden? Direkt telefon kullanma. Kime? Yok tamam. Okay, we are already live streaming. Prof, we can start inshallah. Now they will give you the right to share your screen. Okay. Prof, I guess you can share your screen. And we can start with your keynote, inshallah.
Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, Prof.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Well, thank you, Kamala and your university for inviting me to give this talk. So today, I'll basically talk about cash waqf. This is one type of waqf instrument in Islamic social finance and how it can develop human capital and development in the Muslim world and anywhere in the world. So this is a sort of brief outline of my presentation. So when we talk about waqf, waqf is an Islamic social financial institution which is also considered as a redistributed institution. Now, the term waqf is not found in Quran, but Muslim jurists have derived its legitimacy from various sources of Islamic law, including Quran and Sunnah. And there are two kinds of waqf, immobile waqf and mobile waqf, which is cash waqf that has been approved by Islamic scholars. And the purpose in which waqf has been utilized is not limited only to religious matters, but it can be used for any purpose which is beneficial to the society that does not contradict with the tenets of Islamic law. Now, what is the connection with waqf to poverty and Islamic finance? Islamic principles of poverty alleviation are based on Islamic views of social justice and belief in Allah Almighty. In defining poverty, Islam relates poverty as a state whereby an individual fails to fulfill 5 basic human requirements of life as religion, physical self, intellect or knowledge, offspring, and wealth. Now, when we talk about poverty alleviation strategies, there are three ways or strategies that are used in order to attack poverty. First, the positive measures. The government should take actions and activities so that there is income growth in the economy, there is functional distribution of income, and there has to be equal opportunity for everyone. And then it takes a series of preventive measures, for example, control of ownership and prevention of malpractices so that wealth is not concentrated in few hands or few families, and government is blocking all the malpractices so that nobody is injured from such malpractice. So even after doing positive measure and preventive measures, there is still something need to be done additional. This is what we call corrective measure. And out of this corrective measure, the Islamic social finance is there. There is compulsory transfer, which is Zakat. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And there is recommended charity, like transfer of charity, and Waqf is a perpetual charity and state responsibility. Now, charity in Islam, so as you can see, the compulsory charity, which is Zakah and Fitra, which is given at the end of fasting Ramadan during Eid al-Fitr. Zakah is a mandatory 2.5% and other types of wealth on a wealth tax. It's not an income tax. Then you have charity, optional Sadaqa, and you have the perpetual Waqf. Now, when we talk about the role of philanthropy, which is Waqf falls in, or charity economy in the Islamic world, we believe carrying out charitable works fulfills the maqasid of Sharia. When a man dies, all his acts come to an end, but 3, recurring charity, knowledge by which people benefit, or a pious offspring who prays for him. The Waqf structure provides an avenue to obtain the favor of Allah by fulfilling these 3 aspirations simultaneously. Now, in the Quran, financial giving for charity is equal to spending, which is infaq. Therefore, financial giving for charity leads to consumption in classical economic terms. And if there is an increase in donations, there will be aggregate expenditure, and which will lead to expansion in national income. So charity has an impact on the national income growth, and Islamic principle discourage wastage, and Waqf institution can come forward to eliminate wastage from private and public sectors, closing resource gaps. Now, 2 ways the Islamic non-profit sector can increase potential GDP: investment in profit and loss sharing, commercial ventures to lift capital stock levels and therefore subsequently raise GDP, and participate in non-profit sector will result in healthier and more educated and productive labor force, and Waqf institution will add value in the form of an effective safety net for the poor as well. Now, low level of trust result in low level of giving in Muslim countries. For example, there is less than 1% or $1.9 billion in 2004, little bit old data, of the GDP of Turkey goes to giving. People distrustful in general and prepared to give charity directly to the beneficiaries instead of to organizations because of lack of trust. And same phenomena exists in the United States and the Pakistani Arabic communities. Education and introducing professionalism to governance and business can bring public trust. And I have done a work 2019 in the context of Bangladesh where I've shown that trust gap in governance is hindering cash Waqf development in Bangladesh. Now, what is cash Waqf? So let's start with the Waqf. There are 4 legal elements of any Waqf institution: the founder, the Waqif, the property to be endowed, mawquful alayhi, and 3, the endowment consisting of giving and consequently detention by will or by deed or by act of endowment, and finally the beneficiary or the beneficiaries. Now, in the Waqf can be given to religious Waqf, mostly in the Indo, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India subcontinent. The most of the Waqfs are religious Waqf. There's philanthropic Waqf. A lot of religious institutions or universities are run by philanthropic Waqf. There is also family Waqf. And there are new dimensions, the cash Waqf and Waqf intellectual property. So the Waqf, the most accepted definition is the endowment must be for perpetuity, maturity, opinion except Malikis. The Waqf corpus is inalienable and irrevocable. The trustee maintains endowed property The fund can be formed for general or specific purposes, and endowment generally be unconditional. Now, the appropriation and or property from private ownership and the dedication of usufruct to charitable purposes. So that is a definition given by Abdul Mohsen from INSAF. And she is a good authority on this area, and also Professor Murad Sadaqa of the university. So what is waqf? There has to be irrevocability, there has to be perpetuity, there has to be inalienability. And there are two types of waqf. One is movable and there is immovable. So waqf probably falls under the definition of movable waqf. Immovable is real estate, building, piece of land, and so on. Now, cash waqf, the confinement of an amount of money from the founder and dedication of his usufruct according to founder's condition in perpetuity to the welfare of the society. And the cash waqf is an Islamic social finance tool, an institution which is first at the time of Ottoman Empire. And it is said that the first cash waqf during the Ottoman Empire was established by Yaj Haji Achi Musliuddin in Edirne, where he dedicated 10,000 akçe, the main monetary unit of the time Ottomans until 18th century, and some shops in 1423 to pay 3 employees 1 akçe per day for reciting Quran at Kilisi Mosque. So that's the known history of waqf. So, but if you look at the modus operandi, as I said, direct and indirect, movable and immovable. So modus operandi is a charitable institution or a cash waqf financial institution can appoint itself as a trustee to select any specified community project or activity to start with. In its role as a trustee, the cash waqf financial institution can call for contributions in the form of cash waqf in different values, and contributors can be individuals, corporations, Islamic financial institutions, and the governments. To ensure the perpetuity of cash waqf, the accumulated funds must be managed depending on the nature of created cash waqf, either directly or indirectly. Now, what is the difference between waqf, Sadaqa, and Zakat? So waqf is known as a Sadaqa Zaria or ongoing charity in perpetuity, while Sadaqa is known as a one-time charity that could be given to any type of beneficiary identified by the giver at any time. And Zakah, on the other hand, is the third pillar of Islam, which is compulsory for all eligible Muslims to pay to the legal beneficiaries mentioned in the Quran. And as such, Zakat is a due right on the specific items of assets and properties in specific percentages with consideration of the passage of a year and the satisfaction of nisab. Now, when we talk about the cash waqf for human development, the notion of human development has evolved over the decades. In the late 1980s, a paradigm shift in this regard was observed as it was realized that the development level of countries could not be solely decided based on accumulation of wealth. It should be decided based on capacities that people had to live a life that they valued. Cuba's 2020 observes that from 1990, with the first measurement of Human Development Index by the United Nations Development Program, the decision makers commence to readdress their focus on development by concentrating on human beings and the generation of strategies that endorse the progress of societies. And since then, for the governments, civil societies, and multilateral organizations, the challenge faced is to achieve progress in human development in this manner, and some countries have formulated fiscal and tax policies in achieving them. At the international level today, evidence-based global agendas such as the Millennial Development Goals, MDG, or the Sustainable Development Goals are developed to encourage and measure the success of countries. Now, for instance, the total number of deaths. So what is the impact of these different strategies? Of course, it has some impact. I mean, total number of deaths among children and young adolescents after 15 years of age dropped by 56% in 1990 to about 6.2 million in 2018, significant improvement from 14 million to 6 million and 14.5 million to 6.7 million young children and adults. So this is significant improvement. However, we also find that one child or young adolescent dies every 5 seconds in 2018. We also find that sub 600 million people live below $1.90 a day poverty line, and it jumps to 1.3 billion when measured multi-dimensional poverty index. So we did a work myself highlight the practice of cash waqf for human development in various parts of the world, including Bangladesh, Bahrain, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Turkey. Then we observed that these countries have used cash waqf for human development related purposes. In Bahrain, for example, cash waqf has been used for human capital development in Islamic finance, research and collaboration with other nations and curriculum development. In Indonesia, it has been used for healthcare, education, and economic empowerment and social welfare. So here is an example from the multinational development, multilateral development agency, like for example, ISDB. If you can see on the left-hand side, it's called AUCA Properties Develop Investment Finance. So this is an entity or organ of IDB, which provides financing to develop AUCA properties, which can be generated, which is used to generate more revenues from the existing AUCA properties. It has been said in Indonesia, for example, there are $60 billion idle AUCA properties lying around. So it is said that if we can convert this into income generating entities, that income that will be generated from the $60 billion property, even if we take 5% a year, it's a $3 billion, it can do a lot of wonder in the Muslim world in eradicating or fighting poverties and developing human capital. Now, there are several innovations that is happening in the Waqf world. We have the Waqf share scheme, compulsory cash Waqf, mobile Waqf, corporate Waqf scheme, Waqf takaful model, cash Waqf linked sukuk, cash Waqf deposit product, my Waqf initiative, Waqf fund model for education, Waqf unit trust fund, Waqf using blockchain technology. So if you look at the Waqf share screen, Waqf share scheme, any specified institution appointed by the government may establish a scheme and become the mutawalli or trustee. Then the appointed trustee will issue Waqf shares and different values and sell the shares to donors for a specific project. And the donor can buy the shares according to their affordability, and the donors will receive cash Waqf certification as evidence of purchasing the Waqf shares of the specified amount for the specified project, and the amount collected from the sale of Waqf shares will be managed by the trustee in terms of investment of the funds, and finally, the revenue generated from the investment will be used for financing the specified project. Now, compulsory cash Waqf scheme, Muslim employee salaries are deducted through the Central Provident Fund Board in Singapore's National Social Security Organization. Monthly contributions between $1 to $7 are made by Muslim employees. The amount of deduction depends on the Muslim employee's monthly gross salary. The salaries of the Muslim employees are automatically deducted through an automatic check-off system, whereby salary is deducted by their employer and channeled through CPF with Mujlis Ugama Islam Singapore as the collecting agent. And the collected amount is to finance charitable purposes such as building and maintaining mosques, funding educational program, and building dawah centers. Now, there is also mobile Waqf concept that is being used in some countries. Founders or donors create cash Waqf by sending a coded SMS to a designated server number to deduct a certain amount from the airtime to the Waqf trustee. So they can donate their airtime or mobile time they have used or they have under their possession. The amount collected from different contributors is invested through Musharaka investment. and the revenue generated is then distributed in a pre-agreed profit sharing ratio agreed between the telecommunication company to recover operating costs, the Waqf trustee, and the specified charitable areas. Then you have corporate Waqf scheme. Now, the first founder, either a private or public corporation known as the mother corporation or main founder, will establish an associated Waqf institution as a trustee. The main founder will ask all his subsidiaries to contribute part of their profits or dividends to the corporate Waqf on a regular basis, besides calling other donors such as individuals, companies, and institutions to contribute cash Waqf to this associate Waqf institution. And the associate Waqf institution, in its role as a trustee, will manage and invest the accumulated cash Waqf from different contributors, and the revenue generated is then channeled to the specific project of their operational expenses have been deducted. So, for example, Waqf and Noor Corporation Berhad is an example where it is reported then in 2020, the distribution of benefits from General Welfare Fund has been over 22 million Malaysian ringgit, and these are the different categories: health, N11, the An-Nur Mosque, general public orphans and others, school education, and special support. Now, you can also have Waqf Takaful model. Takaful operators as shareholders will first create the Waqf fund through a Waqf donation, and then the participant will contribute to Waqf fund based on tabaru. Ultimately, the Waqf fund will be utilized to help and assist participants who are in need, whereby all claims are paid through the Waqf fund. And one of the main challenges faced in this type of Waqf Takaful model is to ensure that there are sufficient funds available in a sustainable manner in the Waqf fund. And Zilani 2019 has proposed an improvised Wakala Waqf Takaful model that could be adopted in Malaysia, and the modus operandi is as follows. So the Takaful operator donates a fund to establish Waqf fund, and then on a monthly basis, premium contributors made by the participants are split in two portions: a portion of tabaru contribution to the Waqf fund and portion to participant risk account. The appropriation based on percentage of premium contributed shall be decided and agreed upfront between the Takaful operator and participants. Any Takaful claims will only be paid and deducted from the participant risk account, while any surplus will be credited back to it. Both Waqf fund and participant risk account will be invested in Sharia-compliant instruments to generate returns, while the return from the participant risk accounts will be credited back to the account. Returns from Waqf fund, however, will channel to the Waqf beneficiaries as approved by the Takaful Operator Sharia Committee. In the event of death, the deceased beneficiaries will be compensated the Takaful benefit from the participant risk account. No further amount is paid on behalf of the deceased to the Waqf fund, and the contribution to Waqf fund is limited to the amount contributed while the participant is alive. Then you have the cash Waqf, which is very popular in Islamic financial institutions. Cash linked sukuk is a form of social investment in Indonesia, where Waqf money collected by Badan, Waqf Indonesia Nazir, through BNI Syria and Bank Muamalat Indonesia Syria Sharia Financial Institution, recipient of Waqf money will be managed and placed on state sukuk instruments issued by the Minister of Finance. And the cash Waqf linked sukuk involves 5 stakeholders, namely Bank Indonesia as an accelerator in encouraging the implementation of cash Waqf linked sukuk, and the custodian bank, and BWI as the regulator, leader, and Nazir, who manages cash Waqf linked sukuk, Minister of Finance as SBS an issuer and fund manager in the real sector, and Nazir Waqf product as BWI partner who raises Waqf funds. So this is a cash Waqf linked sukuk is a modus operandi through the picture. So cash and or e-Waqf sukuk structure shown in figure is proposed by Musari 2016 and Dr. Aziz 2013, which emphasized on not only capital redistribution, but also on capital accumulation. Cash walk-off deposit product is used in banking sector. The other one was cash walk-linked sukuk. I misspoke there. So the founder deposits the cash walk-off into cash walk-off based account in social investment bank. That the bank started this concept in Bangladesh, then it went to other Islamic banks as well. Before depositing the money, the contributors are provided with a list of beneficiaries from which they can select, or the donor can specify its own beneficiaries. The bank acts as a trustee to collect and invest the cash walk-off based on the Muraba contract. The revenue generated from the investment is then channeled to the said beneficiaries. So the cash walk-off model is used in Bangladesh. It has been developed by Professor Abdul Mannan in 1997, has been in practice in social investment bank, and then followed by other banks in Bangladesh. So these are the different categories. They use their process from this cash walk-off fund to eradicate poverty, to develop human capital, to spread dawah and education institutions. Now, there is also a concept called My Walk-Off Initiative, taken by 6 banks in Malaysia. So 6 banks contribute to walk-off fund, and there is a joint management committee. Lead bank will be appointed in walk-off fund project and will be member of JMC. The others, the joint management committee, the others will be participation bank, and a strategic collaboration agreement between the consortium. And of course, there will be state religious council overseeing their activities. These funds will be invested and the return will be gone back to the walk-off projects. As you can see the arrow going down here. So in Indonesia, crowdfunding-based walk-off platform, Walk-off Hasana crowdfunding platform, has also shown the success of cash walk-off. Through such platform, as since its inception 2017-19, it has raised more than 7 billion Indonesian rupees for benefit in 6 fields, including education, development, money endowments, human resources, environment, and Fortress Hasana. Now, you have these steps in My Walk-Off journey. The project would be from 4 different sectors: education, economic empowerment, health, investment. All participating SIRs will list 1 project for a state in the strategic collaboration. New projects will be added from time to time, and they choose the method of payment. There are various methods of payment available through internet, through ATM transfer. You make a donation. When the donator has decided on which project to donate, the contribution can be transferred to the dedicated project account. And utilization of the fund, Joint Management Committee, is a committee established between the lead bank and the SIRC partner, and the regular update and walk-off collected and progress of the project. The donators can keep track of the development of the walk-off project from time to time via the My Walk-off portal. Now, the walk-off model for education, as I said, the very begin in Bahrain. The walk-off fund is created by the Central Bank of Bahrain and Islamic financial institutions in Bahrain, specifically BIB, have made a one-time contribution to the walk-off fund. The fund is invested in Islamic money market instrument, and the investments profits are used to sponsor Islamic economic in finance education related activities in Bahrain. So this is the famous BIBF that you know, that is a result of walk-off given by the created by the Central Bank of Bahrain. Then you have walk-off unit trust. Securities Market Regulatory Authority of Malaysia, Securities Commission, has amended guidelines on unit trust funds in 12 November 2020 in the context of pandemic to include additional requirement for Islamic funds with walk-off features. And April 13, 2021, Kenanga Investors is collaborating with Yayasan Walk-off Malaysia, a national walk-off entity, as the walk-off administrator of the fund, launched its first walk-off fund, the Kenanga Walk-off Al Hassan Fund, a Sharia-compliant mixed assets fund in Malaysia. So these are the walk-off unit trust. It's a different modus operandi. For the sake of time, I'm just going fast. So you can also have walk-off using blockchain technology. So Fintera, a technology-based company providing blockchain-based Islamic applications that address global issues, has introduced my workup. And you know, the blockchain is a system that records information in an immutable way and is a digital ledger of transaction that is copied and disseminated across the entire network of computer systems on the blockchain. And my workup platform introduced by Fintera is shown in the figure below. So you have the cash workup, you select a cause, then you select an amount, and then you donate. Now, you can also have workup coin model. That's another fintech type of instrument that is being used in workup arena as well. So very quickly, so these are the different modus operandi that exist in workup for development that is happening as recent as April 2021. In the context of Bangladesh, where I'm originally from, historically Bangladesh had a very rich tradition of establishing workup, and it still persists. The contribution of workup to education sector alone is significant. More than 8,000 educational institutions are workup. There are more than 123,000 mosques imparting religious education, which includes secular education as well. In this way, the contribution of workup in providing educational facilities to all has wider scope and utility. Now, the famous University of Dhaka, is a result of a 600 acres of land, which is workup state, 30,000 students, of the 90% with financial need. University contains about 220 trusts and foundations. A large number of scholarships are also offered by the university, the Dhaka University Alumni Association, and the government, with easing the hardship of the study. Now, there are 60 total banks in Bangladesh, and out of this 10 are Islamic banks. And the Islamic, this industry is growing. It's roughly around 25% on the asset side and also the deposit side in Islamic banks, playing a very significant role in the development in Bangladesh. But if you look at the workup share is not really that much in the context of Bangladesh. Here we are talking about cash workup is less than $2 million out of 22 billion banking assets. So that is rather disheartening. So the role of Islamic banks, the management of cash workup deposits in Bangladesh, allocation of individual target for the officers of the bank to open at least one CWD account in every month. So there are different incentives given to the Islamic banking sector to develop this industry. Special campaign launched every year to increase the amount of cash over deposit through increasing the number of cash workup deposits accounts. The management of the banks offered special campaign during the service month declared in each year. And the bank officers also do direct personal contact with the potential client. Vigorous initiative had been taken by the management of the banks to motivate the employees for increasing cash workup deposit account by encouraging and enhancing awareness about the benefit of cash workup among the people. Special cash incentive also offered by some banks management to the employees individually that is awarded based on the highest amount and number of cash workup accounts. And some bank arranges client-agent get-together where chairmen, vice chairman, members of the Sharia Supervisory Board inspires the mass people of the benefits of cash workup deposits. Now, issues and problems of cash workup management in Bangladesh. There's a lack of central cash workup instrument at government level to monitor and take positive role in enhancing CWD accounts that requires new innovative avenues. There's a lack of positive guidelines or directions on cash workup deposit by the regulatory authority, lack of propagation among the people about the benefit of cash workup. No initiative has yet been taken from the Office of the Workup Administration in Bangladesh to introduce and nurture cash workup practices in the country. And there's a lack of innovative research, seminar, conference, workshop for the progression of cash workup deposit. But for your information, 2017, Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited, the Center for Zakat Management, has organized an international conference with the help from IDB and KIRTI. There's a lack of incentives from the government for cash or deposit account holders like tax exemption, lack of proper publicity from banks, Islamic scholars, media to encourage the people, clients to open cash Waqf accounts, and lack of participation by other banks to mobilize CWD, which is absolutely no-cost deposits. So what can be done in order to improve the cash Waqf deposit in Bangladesh? Proper channels should be innovated to mobilize the profits generated through cash Waqf deposit to increase the productiveness and capabilities of the poor and the needy. Modern and innovative approach towards Waqf in general and cash Waqf in particular is noted, drawing lessons from selected countries including Bahrain, Indonesia, Kuwait, Malaysia, Singapore, and Turkey. A comprehensive and uniform legal framework for cash Waqf management affairs may be thought of, and also there has been incentive be given for cash Waqf account holders like exemption of tax, etc. Central bank may also give incentives in many forms to the institutions, banks, and non-bank financial institutions who are maintaining a large amount of cash Waqf deposits. And finally, the increasing the growth, the trend would be more contributed to socio-economic development if the banks utilize the CWD fund to create some visible investment areas which would attract the potential donors to come ahead to serve the purpose. Potential sectors include modern shopping malls, hospitals, markets, universities, etc., through which cash Waqf deposit might inspire others to create CWD in the banks. And the research and innovation, which is very much lacking, this area should be taken into consideration. The bank management, central bank, the Waqf administration, the National Board of Revenue should also produce the necessary policies, guidelines to nurture this type of noble initiatives of the banks, which ultimately has value in enhancing the financial institution at large. So there are problem with the Waqf law. So Professor Habib Ahmed did a study of a number of countries, which is a better method of using, whether it's a Waqf law or trust law. The Waqf laws are very much restrictive in the context of Bangladesh. So trust laws probably is more suitable for a country like Bangladesh or similar countries. So that's what one of his argument. So way forward, the legal reform, while fiqh of Waqf is getting flexible, it will have no impact on the growth of Waqf unless national laws are changed. The growth of Waqf sector will depend on the efficiency and flexibility of Waqf laws to meet the demands of contemporary times. It has to be efficient and it has to be flexible. When it's efficient, Waqf law should remove the legal asymmetries and reduce the transaction cost. And Waqf law should follow fiqh and be more flexible. And Waqf has been a private sector institution and should remain so. Government interference should be minimum. Monitoring should be from beneficiaries. And governance issues like board of mutawalis, Waqf management companies, similar trust management companies, trust deed, governed by trust and fiduciary laws. And law should require transparency and accountability of mutawali. So I am coming towards the end with one recommendation, that we should have a worldwide Waqf institution. The shareholders would be initiated by the ISDB, OIC. There are different countries I can see in this figure, A, B, C, and D. Each shareholder pledge an income generating asset. Money received will be deposited to the cash Waqf fund and invest in Sharia compliant financial instruments. Only the profit received from the investment will be used for financing to ensure that there is no depletion of funds received for the cash Waqf fund. And this fund can be used to finance human development projects endorsed in the annual general meeting. So what I'm saying, so we should develop a sustainable global cash Waqf institution for financing human development with the initiation of ISDB and Organization of Islamic Countries. So Muslim countries will become shareholder of the institution, which will be led by ISDB and OIC. The shareholders will pledge an income generating asset to the institution at the inception of the institution, and revenue received from such assets will be directed towards the cash Waqf funds. And once the money is received to the cash Waqf fund of the institution, the money received will be invested in Sharia compliant financial instruments, and the profit received from such investment would be used to finance human development activities selected each year in the annual general meeting of the shareholders. And to have a sustainable global Waqf institution, it is imperative to ensure that income-generating assets are pledged to the institutions by the shareholders. And this way, a global Waqf fund for human development will be created, and poverty in this world would be alleviated with the collective effort from Muslim countries. And final word, thank you for listening to me. There is no doubt that there is potential to utilize Waqf institution to finance human development. We find from this research there are a number of initiatives in the world where financing for human development has become successful through Waqf initiatives. However, we also find that existing practices in this regard is made in an ad hoc manner in different countries at different levels. As such, a global effort in this regard would be initiated to ensure that all countries can benefit from Waqf initiatives. Thank you very much for listening to me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Prof, for wonderful presentation, for your keynote. And as in many sectors, like when we talk about the Kafir sector here in Turkey or increasing the share of Islamic banking in Turkey again, we talk about awareness, which is from your presentation clear, also applies to Waqf, and also the support from government and other financial institutions, Islamic financial institutions. Let me share my presentation. Now I will try to keep short since we have to finish by 3 and we have another session. Maybe we can just extend time a bit until 3:15 to 20. Well, can you view my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Well, today I want to talk about the Makassar Sharia and its importance in Islamic finance education during the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the theme of our conference is COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on Islamic finance in general, its education, social finance, and so on. Let's start with Makassar Sharia. The Makassar Sharia, or the goals of the Sharia, were established through the significant contributions of leading Muslim scholars as an independent area of study. The Makassar Sharia can simply be described as the higher goals of the rules of the Sharia, whose implementation through the promotion of the public good or maslahah promotes the normal functioning of the society and prevents acts to harm people and society. The intent, mission, and target are simply to achieve social and economic justice and to improve community well-being. The Makassar Sharia addresses the ultimate aim of well-being through a 3-stage development model that begins with the fulfillment of pressing needs or daruriya, progresses to the satisfaction of needs or hajia, and finally to the satisfaction of adornments or tahsiniya, the luxury. Al-Ghazali presents the basic ingredients of human well-being in his book, Al-Mustafa. Sharia's primary aim is to foster human well-being, which includes preserving their religion, self, mind, progeny, and wealth. Whatever maintains and protects these 5 fundamentals serves the public good and is desirable. From a socioeconomic standpoint, each fundamental factor of pressing need, its religion, self, mind, progeny, and wealth, represents the strategic cornerstone of human well-being. After religion and self, actually, the mind occupies the 3rd place in the Makassar hierarchy as the human resource that thinks, considers, prepares, handles, and creates Sharia-compliant goods and well-being. So religious, moral, and technological education is therefore a required condition for the mind, regardless of academic rigor or scientific complexity. The primary aim of education from infancy to adulthood is to create socially responsible and economically efficient individuals. This is the essence of a well-balanced human resource plan that aims to improve professional skills and cultivate leadership qualities in the pursuit of socio-economic well-being. Needs and adornments of human resource growth are essentially a way of upgrading the necessary education to a higher level of competence and sophistication. So the ability to development becomes more complex as human societies move to higher economic horizons, and education will then go beyond memorization and comprehension of acquired knowledge to more logical, inventive, and creative abilities in order to tap Allah's endowments on earth. When we talk about Islamic finance education in general, during COVID-19, we conducted a survey where we surveyed more than nearly to 200 educators from 76 countries. And we can say that Islamic finance education is an essential component of the Islamic finance ecosystem. And meanwhile, Islamic economics emerged after the World War II, the period when independent Muslim states appeared on the world map. We have to mention that the first talks about Islamic economics, when you read Sabahattin Zaim's book, started in Pakistan, and they received a letter from Pakistan at the time, and it was asking if you have any developments regarding Islamic economics in your country, to which letter Sabahattin Zaim, Professor Sabahattin Zaim answered that we don't even have this concept at that time. Up to 1975, so when the first conference in Mecca was conducted on Islamic economics, and then we have established prominent institution, Islamic Development Bank. Islamic finance started its development in the form of social banking, and this morning actually Prof. Murad mentioned a lot about Mitamer in Egypt, and also about Tabun Haji in Malaysia, which were established in 1963. And actually, first time I hear today from Prof. Murad Chizakcha, the stories that people used to store, even though I was 10 years in Malaysia, but just today I hear that people used to store the money inside the bamboo, and the risk was either it can be burned or stolen. International Conference on Islamic Economics held in Makkah in 1976 is accepted to be the day of the arrival of Islamic economics as a discipline. Whereas the teaching of Islamic finance started later in 1990s, following the arrival of Islamic banking. It started in Malaysia, teaching Islamic finance in IIUM, Institute of International Islamic University, Malaysia, and focused on the doctrinal debates on riba. As of the end of 2017, the Islamic financial sector consists of approximately 1,400 financial institutions and almost 700 education providers from 76 countries worldwide. This shows how from nothing in just recent years, in 1960s, we reached to 700 education providers in 76 countries. And these countries include also non-Muslim countries. COVID-19 resulted in destruction in almost every sector. When we look at sectors of how disrupted COVID-19, of course, we cannot put education in the same scale with tourism, transportation, so on. We can say that education managed well. It didn't flourish as e-commerce, for example, like when you look at only Turkish context, the growth or year-on-year growth of e-commerce, selling household products and food through online sources raised up to 420%. See, so it means that some sectors really get advantage from COVID. Meanwhile, some were collapsed or nearly collapsed. They need real government support. But in education sector, yes, we also were affected, but I cannot say that we were affected too severely. Alhamdulillah, we adopted very fast in 1 or 2 weeks generally. when you look at countries. I'm talking about Islamic finance education. One of the sectors affected most is unquestionably education sector. For the first time in the history of education, the entire system experienced the migration from the traditional face-to-face teaching to online education. And policymakers, management, lecturers, students, and parents had to adjust themselves to the new normal. To measure the impact of COVID-19 on Islamic finance education, we conducted an online survey with the participation of 150 Islamic finance educators from 12 jurisdictions. Our findings suggest that during this challenging time, 77% of educators find it challenging to balance their personal and professional life, and 80% experienced a significant increase in anxiety. Okay, this survey was conducted in second half of COVID, after the first wave. To the question, I have experienced online teaching for the first time after the outbreak of COVID-19, 67% replied yes, as you see here, and consequently 70% find preparation for online lectures to be more time consuming. So in our survey, actually, we divided the participants into generations. I cannot say that only old generation or middle-aged generation experiencing online teaching for the first time in their lives. No, even a younger generation, it was first time for them, because never before we were forced to teach online. Even the conferences now, we are used to have these Zoom meetings, but if you remember, just 1 year before, it was a novelty for us, and we were trying to adopt ourselves. Forced on, that's why we call it forced online education. Forced online education required acquirers of IT-related skills, such as a familiarity with the use of online teaching platforms. We can say, yeah, it was maybe tough at the beginning, but we adopted in 1 month. After 1 month, almost every lecturer was familiar with the platforms they are using. Before COVID-19, 23% of Islamic economics and finance educators never used any other application. And meanwhile, after breakup of COVID-19, after the pandemic, Zoom seems to be the most used platform. And now we are also conducting this conference via Zoom. Compared to other platforms, I don't know how it is your experience, but for me personally, Zoom is the most user-friendly, maybe easiest to understand platform. Well, in general, for lecturers and students, limited interaction. This is problems of online education, which is limited interaction, lack of motivation, and technical problems appear to be the main issues during the new normal. When we survey our students, we also hear that one of the problems was lack of proper infrastructure, because online education suppose that everyone has proper infrastructure. It's Wi-Fi connection, laptops, and so on and so forth. And of course, separate room, which was not always available for all students, even in higher education. I'm not talking about the elementary schools. And lack of motivation, students were not motivated. And also another problem, cheating during the exams is a problem which we encounter as lecturers. And of course, technical problems are main issues. However, despite the entire challenging environment COVID-19 brought to the education sector, our findings show that 90% of academic institutions proved to be successful in providing the necessary infrastructure and materials for online teaching. So 90% of survived lecturers were saying that yes, the platform provided by the institution and materials and guidance all was in the place and was enough to help them to adopt. And COVID-19 will expedite the adoption of artificial intelligence in the banking sector. So this is one of the way forward. And in the new normal, even less technology-friendly customers who prefer over-the-counter services will have no option but to use mobile banking. It's not only implies for banking. Another survey which we conducted recently on e-commerce shows that generation, our parents' generation, those who are 70 and above, after arrival of COVID, first time they started to buy things online. So actually, COVID brought everything online, and even those people who never use it because of their age, or they were reluctant, they started to use online services. And this also applies to Islamic finance, because now we need students with new skills, IT skills. This means that fewer frontline staff in the banking sector would be employed in the future. This is where we have to focus more as Islamic finance educators. So we are not anymore preparing frontliners. We are preparing staff who will be able to work in digital banking system, if we are talking about banking system only. However, the need for staff with information technology and programming language skills will soar. Accordingly, 86% of Islamic economics and finance educators unanimously agreed that information and technology related courses should take place in the Islamic economics and finance curriculum. COVID-19 also highlighted that understanding the psychology of the investors and customers plays a crucial role in predicting the market. Therefore, another emerging discipline other than IT, which needs to be taught, is behavioral finance. Behavioral finance studies the influence of psychology and the financial behavior of individuals and focuses on the fact that investors are not always rational, have limits to their self-control, and are influenced by their own biases. Especially during times of pandemics, we obviously saw how people can behave irrationally. Maybe the most interesting, even there was a paper which I read, conducted immediately after COVID-19 about hoarding behavior, and that one of the items people hoard most was toilet paper. It happened first time in the human history. For this reason, students who want to be employed or employers who wish to maintain competency in the Islamic finance sector need to invest their time and resources to amass their expertise mentioned above. Again, IT and behavioral finance. COVID-19 pandemic is much more than a health crisis. It is also an unprecedented socioeconomic crisis. Stressing each of the countries it touches, it has the potential to create devastating social, economic, and political effects that will leave deep and long-standing scars. The pandemic disrupted many sectors, and education is one of them. This is true that online learning, as being conducted for the first time, had used and not had issues and not as effective as the physical classes. However, the alternative and aided technology certainly has fulfilled the vacuum of otherwise the learning process would have altogether stopped if we didn't have it. And it's true, if it's not technology, we will not be able, and education sector will be one of the sectors which will collapse as tourism collapsed or as transportation sector collapsed. Secondly, the human psyche takes time to adapt to change. So adjusting technology-aided learning will undoubtedly take time to make it more useful and convenient for all to adopt. This is all based on the state of economic growth, since the use of Allah's endowments must be coordinated with the three-stage development of pressing requirements, needs, and embellishments. The creation of human resources, according to Islam, is not only about developing economic skills to qualify members of society for productive jobs, but also to raise well-behaved and socially responsible generations, including their financial responsibility. So this is all for this presentation. I will have also another presentation after during this session. And if you have any questions, we can take questions, inshallah, at the end. And let me stop sharing my screen and let Prof.
So who is next? Is Dr. Kaleem? Aleem, are you ready? Salim?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. Can you make it
Yes.
full screen? Okay, it's better. There is noise in the background.
Must be from the computer, I believe.
You can start, okay?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The topic, which is fintech SWOT analysis. We'll go through it. I will be skipping some of the slides since it is 42 slides and we have been given 10 to 15 minutes to cover the session. Bismillah. Introduction. When too big to fail organizations actually did fail in 2008, creating global financial crisis, it gave birth to new disruptive babies called fintech. It was not just consequence of the crisis, but perhaps it was waiting for the right moment to make an impact. The moment came immediately after the crisis. It was simply possible due to many other factors, such as the advancements in internet-related technologies, a rise in the internet usage, making provisions for the unbanked population, etc. We will go through the SWOT analysis, that is the strengths and weaknesses and the opportunities and threats to this. I'll be skipping some of the definitions. This is the widely adopted definition. The most widely adopted definition of the fintech is provided by Financial Stability Board as a technology-enabled innovation in a financial services that could result in the new business models, application, process, or product with an associated material effect on the provisions of the financial services. Taking the definition further, Logman, he has written a paper for the IMF, and he writes, by contrast, fintech challenges and sometimes displaces traditional financial institutions and process, elevates the role of the data as a key commodity, and drives the emergence of a new business model. Fintech is also being driven by changing customer demand, particularly from the millennials that have grown in a digitally connected world and do not have the same loyalty to the banks. While some consumers, particularly corporates, remain loyal to the banks, changing consumer expectations are exerting pressure on the bank to adopt internet-enabled technologies to improve their services. Investopedia simplifies and describes the fintech as a new tech that seeks to improve, automate, and deliver, and use the financial services at its core. Fintech is utilized to help companies, business owners, and consumers better manage their financial operations, process, and lives by utilizing the specialized software and algorithm that are used on the computers and increasingly smartphones. Fintech, and the word is combination of financial technology. This definition is adopted in this presentation for SWOT analysis that define the definition talks about algorithms which are part of the artificial intelligence and machine learning. that has been increasingly adopted by the fintech providers. These are the areas which we'll be discussing, and we'll be skipping some of the points. Strength, the global or say borderless nature of the fintech. The location has become meaningless while deciding where to set up the office, thanks to the rise of e-commerce enabled by the fintech. Monica, head of the marketing development of the Braintree, writes, where the businesses once needed to have a physical presence in another country before they could begin selling their products. E-commerce advances such as the cross-border payments have removed these barriers. So border has become more or less important now. Currencies, now with the advent of the cryptocurrencies and other payment mechanisms, again the global trade and the global system has been enabled to due to the fintech, be it cryptocurrency or other crypto tokens. Mobile friendly. Most of the fintechs are mobile friendly, and that enables the fintech to users to become more and more friendlier towards the fintech. Global internet traffic. I mean, the internet has grown in over these periods. So by 2018, um, approximately 52.20% the penetration is there, and I think in 2021 I just read somewhere it is 59% now. That perhaps this is because of the COVID-19, which has helped further. Mobile, 5.2 billion people use mobile phone today, equating to 66% of the world's total population. Now this is just showing you the traffic share and order share of the using the smartphone. There is 70% usage, and the orders are still through the mobile. It is less compared to desktop, but still it is growing very fast. A strength. As per the FinLab Insight, with the growth of the mobile phone usage came growth in mobile phone application. Fintech have aggressively entered the market and are focused on developing a fast and customer-friendly apps to use. These are some of the categories where the orders are based on the online or purchase on in store. So books, music, movies, video games, they are mostly they are the highest on the online, and the lowest one is as of now. This is before the COVID. So COVID things have changed, and the data is still to come out. So grocery now, we have seen even the grocery has grown in the COVID period. Mobile internet usage has finally overtaken the desktop, a fact that has made wide-ranging implication across the various tech sector. Financial technology companies have become acutely aware of this shift and have been adopting to the consumer demands for more mobile-friendly financial services as a result. Halal use or Islamic fintech. The Islamic fintech is no different from any other fintech in the market except for its halal nature, that is Sharia compliant, which appeals to the Muslims. It's not just because halal means good and pure, but it is also because the Muslims believe in the life after death, which motivates them to desire halal products. Use of halal or Sharia compliant has a strong marketing appeal. Islamic fintech has to ensure it must follow the basic Sharia guidelines for all its products. That is, it has to be free from riba, it must not be involved in speculative activities, it must not be used for crime or terror activities, it must be clean from obscenity, and intoxicants. Islamic fintech needs to fulfill its promise and uphold the trust its customers have placed in it. Only by fulfilling these conditions can it be truly worthy of calling itself Islamic fintech company. And this is what its customers expect from them. We'll discuss the OIC at the end in the conclusion. Other strength, it is customer focused. It is the fintech firms' primarily competitive advantage are their ability to launch and pivot their laser focus on customer experience. Most successful fintech firms have focused on narrow functions or strengths with high friction levels, or they underserve the traditional financial institution. Fintech niche is their focus on a specific need or customers and improving the customer's financial experience. They are less regulated. They are slowly the laws are being developed, but still they are less regulated compared to banking institutions. The other strengths and benefits are fintech can make assessing credit risk of small borrowers feasible and economical. Fintech can support financial stability by reducing the bank's operational cost and improve risk management. Fintech can also improve financial integrity. Weakness, lack of trust. Mr. Richard writes that financial technology firms are more vulnerable to a loss of trust than traditional banks because the latter have a stronger incentives to preserve their reputation. The rise of financial fintech was due to the lack of the trust in banks after the global financial crisis. But banks have a long history of surviving and they have a lender of last resort status behind them, which is not the case with the fintech firms. Moreover, fintech firms have yet to establish a strong, reliable brand and establish a strong network. A lack of capital, they're not as strong as the banks are. The World FinTech Report reports that the fintech have struggled to a profitably scale on their own, while traditional financial institutions have a vast consumer base and deep pockets, but with legacy system holding them back, many are increasingly open to innovation through collaboration and APIs rather than building their own. This is the global investment in fintech, which has increased since 2018, and now perhaps it must have gone still further. I have the data only of the 2020. Opportunities, easy to start. With little regulation and more imagination, fintech firms or startup are easy, and in fact, governments and large firms encourage these firms and potential entrepreneurs to try their wild ideas in the market. Hence, many of the financial and technological companies have set up well-funded incubators. And even the US, at the time of Obama, they started Jumpstart Our Business Startup Jobs Act. So it is just to promote the other opportunities is also the unbanked population. According to the World Bank's Global Findex data, is globally about 1.7 billion adults remain unbanked without an account at a financial institution or through a mobile money provider.
Dr. Kaleem, can you finish in 2 minutes, please?
Give me 5 minutes and I will conclude, inshallah. So this is the unbanked opportunity which is provided there. This is if you can have a look at the map. So, and based on this data, I was trying to calculate the OIC's position there. And what I found is countries have an average, the OIC countries have 56% unbanked population as per the 2017 data. And OIC members in Africa have an average of 62.8% of the unbanked population. Asian members have 52.75% unbanked population, while the Middle East has 47.14% unbanked population. And that's a good big opportunity for the fintechs, especially the Islamic fintechs, to enter. Reasons cited by unbanked adults is the majority is lack of enough money, and there is also the religious reason for being unbanked. Okay. Threats, security, cyber attacks and cyber security is the biggest threat in the, and there has been rise in the internet security investment. Non-Sharia compliance is one of the threats, and the regulation not following the legal path is another. Majority of jurisdictions, I'll skip this, and TechFin is another big threat to this is threat to the fintech. Until recently, conventional financial systems were dealing with the fintech disruptions, but suddenly they have the opposite word, TechFin. And TechFin are technology companies, and fintech is a financial innovation through which technology is applied financial businesses or to respond to the needs of the consumers. Whereas TechFin is how leading technology companies expand their businesses into the financial industry. These include Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, collectively called as GAFA from the US, and Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, or BAT from China. Financials and the largest TechFin companies. Recently, even Apple launched their card. So this, I'll come to the conclusion. Financial industry after 2008 could not remain the same as it was before the global financial crisis. It needed to address many things like debt, derivatives, subprime, and net. Smartphones and the mobile-based apps brought in the new types of revolutions to the internet. The mobile itself witnessed advancement in terms of mobile-based internet connectivity from 2G to 4G, and recently the world got 5G. Fintech was natural progression, fixing the shortcomings of the legacy of the conventional banking and the financial system. Fintech firms normally concentrated on specific issues, which has played as a niche for them. The world witnessed tremendous rise in the internet penetration. The rise in the mobile internet connectivity was due to the increase in internet speed, and cheaper offers from the internet providers made the inroads for the fintech much simpler. Unbanked population that existed due to the stringent documentation requirements, minimum balance requirement, physical distance, and sometimes due to the religious belief, has given the fintech firms a greater market to accommodate. In fact, these firms are helping governments in their financial inclusion missions. Less regulated areas of technology where now finance was being mixed gave the authorities a new challenge to define and evolve the legislation that fits the fintech. While conventional financial institutions were still thinking of to meet the challenges thrown by the fintech, the tech fins have all the three major elements required to be successful in the modern financial system. They have the deep pockets, they have the digital technology edge, and they have the largest database available. The conventional financial institutions have a remarkable experience of surviving the odds, and the traditionally regulated banks have a lender of last resort behind it. It will be the interest of the conventional financial institution to partner with the right fintech to meet the future challenges. Fintechs have a technological edge and know-how, while the conventional financial institutions have deep pockets and a strong database. Don't forget the Generation Z are used to the technologies promoted by the TechFin, which for future poses bigger challenge for the conventional finances and fintechs. OIC must develop a special unit to study and certify the the Islamic fintechs. It can take the help of the International Islamic Fiqh Academy to study the Sharia compliance, and perhaps the CERX to study the fintech company's financial health and viability. The financial health certification is important as it will involve the funds of many poor Muslims who may be devastated by the failure of the fintech. Hence, it will be great service by the OIC to prudently study and certify the financial health of the and viability of the fintech along with its Sharia compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alim. We have 3 more presentations, and I believe we have only 30 minutes. So I'm sorry, but I have to rush in time, like 10 minutes each for the future 3 presentations. Let me start with Awal Saad. Awal, can you hear me?
Yes, bro.
Okay, Awal, can you please share your screen? Good to see you.
Okay, good to see you, bro. Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Kabir Hassan for chairing the session. Also thanking my former colleague, Dr. Kamola Bayram, for hosting us also today. My topic is about the COVID-19 linked financial distress, which actually we try to provide some solution from the Islamic business ethics, Sharia and Islamic economic perspective. Myself, Awal Adam Saad, and my colleague, Dr. Marwan Said Marwan from IIBF at IUM. The content of this presentation is going to look at the introduction and also the world economy before the COVID-19, and also the COVID pandemic itself, and then the impact of the COVID protocols on the economies, and also facing the economic problem, then Islamic business ethics, and then the concept of ether, that's altruism in Islamic economics, and also the concept of istiqamah and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we can conclude. First of all, in the introduction, we will understand that the current health crisis that actually affect the whole world is alarming, that most economies are financial, and financial institutions may face chronic financial distress. And this is very clear. And also this is because of the pandemic, and a possible merciless impact might also be experienced, which has actually been experienced by many economies, and also the financial institutions, including the Islamic businesses and Islamic financial institutions across the globe. The Islamic business ethics and values of Islamic economics are vital mechanisms that should be observed and strictly encouraged during the time of any economic distress, and especially during this pandemic. Islamic business ethics are based on Islamic values that learned from the teachings of the Quran and the prophetic traditions and the Sahaba experiences at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happens before the economic crisis of COVID-19? In the 2019 economic reports, most of the records record some slowdown actually in the global economic development. And this was related to many factors, including the trade wars between the world large economies and also the social and political conflicts, as well as geopolitical stalemates and economic sanctions. COVID-19 pandemic, when it strikes, it actually strikes the world without any alarming, and it carries a lot of protocols, as everyone knows. There is social gathering restrictions, travel ban, closure of businesses, public health concern, and panic. And these have caused a lot of economic problems, such as lower production and lower consumption of many products and the stoppage of many services. There is a clear impact of the COVID-19 protocols. One of it actually contributed to the economic situation that actually worsening as many businesses were closed and social activities were halted by many economists. And this causes nearly a collapse of the global production. Travels restriction has also stopped or toppled the tourism industry to its lowest in many years. Significant drops in the equities markets is actually realized. Budget slashes followed by introducing various new fiscal policies across the globe. So how the world actually faced the economic problem of COVID-19? We have seen introduction of many stimulus packages, special fiscal policies adopted to reduce the economic impact, and also the relationship between employer and employee. That's one of the most important things that we should look at it, which is very, very important because most of the companies have actually, people lose their jobs from these companies, which are actually private. As we know, private institutions are not actually, they cannot make it without the sales. So they can easily send out and release their employees. And that really affects the economy very badly. Retrenchment is there, and also the salary reductions by some institutions is there. So what are we going to do to solve this problem? So our paper here is going to introduce some Islamic ethics that actually could help in containing and helping in this situation. One of the there are a lot of business ethics that many scholars have discussed, but I intended to choose few of these ones in order to make it very quick because we don't have much time. First, al-iman bil-qadr. As Muslims economies know that whatever happens in our businesses is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we will shortly test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits. But give good tidings to the patients. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah. Focusing on legitimate earning. Despite the COVID-19 crisis, we also have to focus on legitimate earning. And this is what all the Islamic financial institutions advise you. All you have believed, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly, but only in lawful businesses by mutual consent. And do not kill yourselves and or one another. Indeed, Allah is merciful to you. Trustworthiness is in business transactions. This is very, very important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, do not betray Allah and His Messenger, knowingly betray your trust." That's in Surah Al-Anfal. The Prophet, peace be upon him, also mentioned that Allah the Almighty in his Hadith Al-Qudusi says, "I am the third of the two people in a joint venture, and whenever they kept their trust and promises." Allah the Almighty also said, "O you who have believed, fear Allah and be with the trustworthy." So amana also should be there. The Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned that Allah the Almighty in his Hadith Al-Qudusi has said, Allah the Almighty said, "I am the third of the two people in the joint venture." I think this is the repetition of the previous Hadith. Breaching trust is discouraged in any businesses and in any Islamic financial institution should not be involved in the breach of trust. And this might happen a lot in the COVID-19 crisis where many people might not be able to fulfill their promises, but it should not be seen, it should not be done without intentionally. It should not be done intentionally. So this is mainly the case of many companies being declared bankrupt sometimes because of unethical experiences and unlawful activities. Amana has a meaning of God-fearing and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It also covers many aspects of Muslims' lives, including the honesty in our work and avoiding negligence or exploitation. The Islamic financial institutions are also advised not to engage in exploitation activities towards their clients. And this is the time of COVID-19. We should not exploit our clients, our employees, and our people that work with us. And the clients are also obliged not to engage in deceptive activities. All are commanded by Allah to be trustworthy and exercise ethically in their business relationships. I would like to discuss two Islamic economic values. The first is the concept of ithar. The concept of ithar, altruism, is in Islamic economics, and also the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can see it in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala link it to the production and the wealth creation. The concept of ithar. What is the concept of al-ithar? I think this is very important to understand. This is an opposite concept of self-love in the conventional economy. Loving others is regarded as loving yourself in Islam when it comes to the economic activities or when it comes to helping others. So self-love in the is actually narrowly understood by many people in light of a creed whose limits stand at the horizon of the world must lead to influence, and it is a behavior that the writers have been keen to criticize. But self-love itself has been adapted to be a motive for altruism as in light of the Islamic belief that broaden the choices of the Muslim consumer to include the benefits of the world and the benefits of the afterlife as well. So to sum it up, when you actually produce, you are actually going to give this part of your production to someone else who is actually in need. And at the time you are giving this part of the your wealth as zakat or as waqf, you are actually loving yourself at the same time. So that's the difference between the concept of self-love, because I think the next slide is going to give us more explanation on this. So whenever, whoever reaches you with the blessings, it is from Allah, the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala, on his hand. Then he is obliged. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed such blessings to you, and he thinks in himself that he best think in this world and the hereafter is to give you. So Allah has actually has given you this blessings so that you can give it to someone else. So he is only giving you for the purpose of himself. So if he did not know that this benefit was in your benefit, he will not have benefited you. So then he is only asking for the benefit of himself for your benefit. Then he is not a blessing to you, but rather he took you as a means to another blessings, and he is requesting it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is actually quoted from Imam Al-Ghazali. So whoever gives something in a way of help, he is actually helping himself at the same time. He has given that thing to help others, but at the same time, he is also looking for the help in the hereafter. Al-istiqama. So Islam linked the development and increase of production to uprightness in the obedience to Allah and his worship. So Allah the Almighty said, and I said, seek your Lord's forgiveness, for he is truly most forgiving. That's in Surah Nuh. فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا. He will shower you with the abundant rain. and supply you with the wealth. وَيُمْدِدْكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ جَنَّاتٍ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ أَنْهَارًا, and gives you gardens and as well as rivers. So why he will give you that? Because فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ, seek for the forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we have this kind of pandemic, we have the coronavirus, we seek the forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get the relief from this virus. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, had the people of those societies been faithful and mindful of Allah, we will have overwhelmed them with the blessings from heaven and earth. But they disbelieve, so we seize them for what they use to commit. So all this shows being good and practicing a very good religious activities, and also been exercising very good habits and ethics, especially the Islamic ethics and economic values. Observing the Islamic economic values will help in containing and reducing and even reducing the pandemic that we are in. In the conclusion, I would like to, the concept of ithar and unselfishness, that's the unselfishness, should be observed to be a defaulting, for the defaulting customer during the COVID-19 pandemic. And maintain the Islamic teachings and ethical and economic values in businesses, investment and financing models, as this is another way to get rid of the COVID-19. COVID-19 pandemic should create a climate and a good chance for the Islamic financial institutions to show the true color of Islamic finance, which includes mercy to humanity, practical Islamic business ethics, trustworthiness, and Islamic economic values. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Saad. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. So we need to really move to the next presenter. Are you there, Razak? Kamola, who is the next presenter?
Brother Razak is next presentation. I will be sharing his screen. Are you here, brother? I will be sharing his presentation, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Let me open the presentation first.
Okay, Kamola, what is this?
Yeah. I'm sharing from. Just a second. Just open. Okay, this one. No. Brother, you can start to present, and I will be changing.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Abdul Razak. I will be presenting on behalf of Dr. Abdul Majid, as he is busy right now. So my title will be Sharia Routine on Financial Engineering and Evaluation of some of its applied models. So my presentation will be consisting of background of study, problem statement, objectives and research questions, literature review, the contracts buildings they rely on in their transactions, factors to reveal the corruption of faith in financial engineering, evaluating Islamic financial engineering models, and last and not at least, the result of the study. So we will be starting on the background of the study. Financial markets have proceeded into two stages. The first stage, commercial banks, then joint money markets. The need for financial engineering arises either in response to investment opportunities according to the aspirations of investors and institutions together, or to deal with international competition restrictions. In this, it is considered as financial hedging tool. The continuous change in financial and investment environment leads to the necessity of searching new financial tools and products described as a lower cost, no risk, and higher return. The financial engineering contains many multi-groups of these new tools, financial tools. Problem statement. The main issue, the entry of intermediaries into the contractual process, imposing some new and varied contracts. This development was accompanied by some violations of Islamic law, such as simulated contracts, in what has recently been dubbed financial engineering. This study identifies the most serious issues with these contracts and clarifies their Sharia structure by describing the most relevant Sharia regulations governing contracts formation and renewal in Islamic jurisprudence. Research objectives. We have two objectives for the research. Number one is evaluating Islamic financial engineering models. Number two, this study identifies the most serious issues with these contracts and clarifies their Sharia structure by describing the most relevant Sharia regulations governing contracts formation and renewal in Islamic jurisprudence. Literature review. Development, the contract buildings they rely on in their transactions. Development in financial markets and financial engineering has taken some paths that contract this building, and it is truth. These tracks can be summarized as follows. Invoking conditions to set aside contract requirements. The crux of the issue in financial engineering is not the prohibition of the terms in contracts, but rather the expansion of restrictive conditions that limit the contract's effects. The role of Sharia in this is the prohibition of conditions that contradict the requirements of contracts. Invoking the promise and guaranteeing contract power when the contract cannot be concluded. This results in a new term called binding promise, such as selling the specification and promising to exchange. Hamad defined a binding promise as a way for banks to avoid taking risks, adopting al-musharaka and al-ijara to be pure means of proof of zero risk debts, as is the case in the construction of contracts. Al-ijara muntahiya bit-tamlik and diminishing musharaka. Contract engineering to achieve the goal of financing from banks regardless of the economic conditions, such as organized tawarruk contract and refers tawarruk, which has become part of the behavior of Islamic banks in some countries, with the declaration of its illegality in many Sharia bodies. Disrupting the legal rule, al-ghun bil-ghurm and al-kharaj bil-daman, by suspending, deporting the guarantee and creating a third part to donate the guarantee. Next. Factors to reveal the corruption of faith in financial engineering. Number one, reviewing the damage that may be caused to the individual as a result of entering into multilateral or complex contracts in themselves, and this shall be through the courts. Number two, evaluating the financial performance according to the indicators of Islamic finance and economy, and monitoring damage to society, whether directly or indirectly. So in this table, I will be presenting the type of the contract and the possibility of its application in the contemporary financial engineering. Witnessing or foreclosure. This is solution to the problem of the documentation required by the commercial credit. Financial companies and Muraba joint stock company. This is to solve the problem of finances. Muraba contract unify the mutual need between money and work within an integrated contract. Forward sale, installment sales, solve the buyer's lack of liquidity. As SILM came to solve the financing and marketing problems. Investment scope, risk reduction, asset diversification, liquidity management, and institutional contract, it enhances work, production, and industry. Next, evaluating Islamic financial engineering models. Muraba model. This model, pre-engineering, Muraba sale to buy something through a contract to participate as follows. Agency-based model. This model is based on re-engineering that demonstrates relationship with the Islamic Bank from the joint Mudaraba relationship that raises an application problem, which is the issue of temporal overlap. Model Ijara bonds described in Ad-Dimma stated that Ijara bonds are an innovative type of Islamic bond. It combines the bond as a financial instrument, the lease contract and salam contract, and its mechanism is the surface is described in the Dimma, such as university education. Research the result of the study. Financial engineering is an economic necessity for avoiding risks and managing financial liquidity. Financial contracts such as options contracts, future contracts, and organized tawarruk contracts have been established that contradict Sharia intent in the utilitarian edition. The main motivation for financial engineering is the goal of hedging. And hedging means protecting capital and avoiding risk, which is incompatible with the rule of gain in finance and exclusion by guarantee. These are models proposed that are complete in terms of perception, but require further evaluation, particularly in terms of procedural aspects. Next. That's all from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Razak, for presenting this paper on behalf of the original author of this paper. So who is next? Kamala?
I am next and last, inshallah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I started with thank you. Assalamu alaikum for the second time, everyone, and thank you for your patience. Inshallah, we are going to have our next session in 15 minutes, so I will try to finalize in 10 minutes. So maybe we will have 5 minutes Q&A if we have time. So my presentation is titled The Impact of COVID-19 on Islamic Financial Sector in Turkey. This paper, this research was conducted by myself and my colleague Hüseyin Ergun, Dr. Hüseyin Ergun, from Konya Chamber of Commerce, Karatay University. Well, the new type of coronavirus, COVID-19, which emerged in Wuhan city of China, has affected the world in a short time and appeared to be a severe test for the global economy. Turkey started the pandemic with an immediate partial lockdown and gradually increased its restrictions. During the Q2 of 2020, elderly citizens and youth, which constitute 40% of the population, were under the full lockdown, while a full lockdown for the entire population was applied on weekends and holidays. So we are still on under the full lockdown on partial lockdown on the holidays. In addition to implementing an effective lockdown policy, in order to mitigate the negative impact of the virus on the economy, the government introduced the stimulus program known as Economic Stability Shield Package, financed under the quantitative easing scheme. In a global coordinated move, Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey slashed its key interest rates following an emergency move taken by the US Federal Reserve to boost dollar liquidity in response to the impact of the coronavirus outbreak. As a result of the cut of interest rates and excessive expansion of the central bank's balance sheet weakened the trust in the national currency. As a result, residents... Bir dakika bekler misin? Tamam, dışarı çıkabilirsin. Sorry, my daughter is here. She also wants to know something. Balance sheet weakened and trust in the national currency. As a result, residents' forex deposit with banks increased to USD 203 billion by July 2020. Turkey takes numerous measures to protect people, companies from the economic impact of novel coronavirus pandemic. One of these measures is the Economic Stability Shield package, which intends to support salary payments, postpone loans, and provide flexibility for taxpayers and to protect markets amid the uncertainty caused by the outbreak. When it comes to the employees and pensioners, the government continued to provide amount of 11 USD per month for around 7.8 million minimum wage earners with a duration of 12 months. Both the public and private sectors have taken measures for remote working or more flexible hours was started in an effort to keep more people in their houses. The government also announced that for 3 months, it would pay 60% of the employees' salaries of firms forced out of business due to pandemic. With this short-term employment allowance, the government said it would also make direct transfers within the range of 260 USD to 650 USD to employees' bank accounts. For healthcare personnel, performance payments paid in maximum for 3 months as the country employs 32,000 additional staff for medical facilities. When it comes to taxes and other payments, the government announced that over 2 million taxpayers value-added tax, VAT, and premium payment totaling to 7.9 billion USD postponed for 6 months. Income taxes are postponed for 1.9 million citizens who face a force majeure, as well as the payments and declarations of taxpayers of aged 65 and above. Property taxes scheduled for the summer 2020 were also delayed until January 2021. The government has also provided flexibility for rental payments of properties owned by particular provincial administrators, municipalities, and their subsidiaries. When it comes to banking sector, actually interesting things happen in banking sector. Let me just move here. We have during COVID, especially during the very early stages of COVID-19 of the pandemic, the state lenders, especially state banks, introduced 4 new packages to boost the economy. So these packages include mortgage loans, motor vehicle financing, personal needs financing, and holiday financing. So the mortgage installment commenced with the maximum 12 months delay. At the beginning, it was commencing with 12 months delay. After a while, it was 6 months delay. And actually many people in Turkey, they start to acquire property. But these loans packages actually also resulted in inflation. So the housing prices for motor vehicle, especially second-hand motor vehicle, increase, they just fly by sometimes many times. Like for example, in my condominium, the house which was around 300K Turkish lira now costs 500 Turkish lira, 500 or 600, like they doubled because of these cheap loans. Well, when it comes to also holiday loans, they also commenced with maximum 6 months delay, and duration was extended to 36 months. It was also to help boost the local tourism. When you look to the housing loans change in percentages, you will see that starting from early stages of pandemic, there was increase in mortgages, as well as other consumers loans. Well, what other measures Islamic banks in Turkey took to address COVID-19? Well, when we talk about measures taken by Islamic banks, first I have to give you a short background of Islamic participation banks. We call Islamic banks participation banks in Turkey. And by now we have 6 participation banks. 3 of them are state-owned and other 3 are privately owned. So the most packages, like when you look at privately owned banks, which is Al Baraka Turk, Kuwait Turk, and Turkey Finance, what they have done almost similar. They have increased the ATM withdrawing limit from 2K to 5K Turkish liras. And they also increased the touch and go payment balance. And they are, yes, they introduced a lot of digital banking facilities, but the real loan incentives were given by the government-owned banks, Islamic banks, state-owned Islamic banks. The first is Ziraat Participation Bank, Ziraat Katılım Bankası. For example, for Ziraat Katılım Bank, a part of other standard things, the bank launched a personal needs financing application created under the Economic Stability Shield package. Vakıf Participation Bank, the existing funds used by the enterprises were restructured and various facilities were provided to the sectors most affected by the pandemic. There's also another state-owned bank. And when it comes to Emlak Participation Bank is the youngest Islamic bank, which was born in 2019, among the 6 participation banks in Turkey, and the 3rd state-owned participation bank or Islamic bank. Emlak from Turkish translated as a real estate. Therefore, as the name suggests, the primary role of the bank is providing housing finance to the customers. In line with its established objectives and under the government's Economic Stability Shield package, the bank provided housing loans. So these under the 4 packages. All these 4 packages, special loans, were implemented through the state-owned banks. As a conclusion, I can say that Turkey took a number of measures to minimize the adverse effect of the crisis on the economy, particularly a series of measures taken in order to prevent the loss of employment. Some of these measures are directed to strengthen the economy from the supply and demand sides, and some of them are measures aimed directly at working life and employment. One of the most critical measures introduced in terms of the protection of employment was to provide the opportunity to apply for a short-time working allowance for all enterprises that slow down or stop their activities due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Private financing opportunities and other supports announced by the public banks reached 260 Turkish liras, 260 billion Turkish liras. All these measures are expected to have a positive impact on the indicators for the coming months. And also I have to mention that a part of government support, we as citizens, there was campaigns which were calling citizens to donate some amount of money, and there was people donating their few salaries to help the government to overcome these difficult times. So this is all from me, and due to time constraint, I tried to finish as fast as I can, and since we don't have time for Q&A.
Okay.
Questions. I don't know, Prof.
Thank you, Kamala. Thank you. So we had this 5 actually wonderful presentation, 2 by Kamala. It's basically impact of COVID-19 on the education sector and financial sector in Turkey. Then Dr. Kaleem talked about fintech revolution and how it's going to impact the financial services industry. So he gave some cautionary note that the traditional banking system has to adapt to this new onslaught from the fintech companies. And Razak, on behalf of another scholar, he talked about the financial engineering, some Sharia angle of it. And Awal Saad brought the concept of altruism, that if you do good to others, actually you're doing good to yourself, from Imam Ghazali, and how that concept can be used during this pandemic in order to improve our economic health, mental health, financial health. So these are all wonderful presentations. I believe the next session starts in 1 minute. I thank you very much. And also thank you for listening to me. And inshallah, we'll see each other next time in person. And may Allah bless all of you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you.